Celestial greetings, it is Alessia, and welcome to my first anime commentary video. In this series, I will be exploring the use of common anime tropes in the popular harem romance anime, the Quintessential Quintuplets, also known as Gotoubun no Hanayome, accompanied by time-lapse footage of myself making emotes of the quintuplets. It goes without saying, beware, going forward there will be spoilers for the entire Quintessential Quintuplets manga and anime, including the ending and the overall winner. Another disclaimer, I unfortunately lost the time-lapse footage for my Ichika emotes, so I'll be doing her commentary after the other sisters, once I have had time to create another illustration, or maybe illustrations, starring her to use as the speed paint. Now, on to the main subject. Nakano Nino is the second Nakano Quint, sharing a birthday of the 5th of May with her sisters. She's 165 centimeters tall and weighs exactly 56.8 kilograms with naturally pearl pink hair and blue eyes, sharing many of these traits with her sisters. In terms of her personality, Nino takes on a maternal role amongst the quintuplets following their mother's death, cooking their food and assuming an overprotective and often hostile disposition. Visually, she differs from her sisters through the butterfly clip she wears in her hair. This contributes towards a motif of freedom throughout her arc. Nino shares character traits with the common anime tsundere archetype. Tsundere originates from the Japanese tsuntsun, meaning to turn away in anger or disgust, and dere dere, to become affectionate. Characteristically, this trope emerges in romance anime when a character, often a girl, though of course there are exceptions, is violent and hostile to conceal secret feelings of attraction towards their love interest. This trope is controversial in anime due to depictions of abuse being presented as desirable in women. Some tsunderes have become very violent towards their love interest, such as the infamous Tiger from Toradora or Asuka from Evangelion. Nino begins the series as a stereotypical embodiment of these expressions of character. From the offset, she refuses to allow Futaro near her sisters and insults him multiple times through harsh jabs, calling him a creep and a stalker. She is determined to keep her sisters turned against him because she does not want him to invade their family. Nino's tsundere traits emerge mostly with her main love interest, Futaro Uesugi, though it can also be seen through her interactions with the other quints, especially Miku, one of the closest to her in terms of birth time as the third quint. Her developing relationship with these two characters especially are a display of the immense change she goes through during the series. Nino interacts differently with each of her sisters. She and her only older sister Ichika do not interact much early on, but seem to have a mostly cordial relationship at the opening of the series. As the plot progresses, the two are increasingly pitted against each other as romantic rivals, and both are willing to go as far as they can to get what they want. Ichika even calls Nino a train with busted brakes, as she will go further than all the others. Yotsuba and Nino again begin the series fairly close, as all the sisters are, with the possible exception of course of Nino and Miku, who are in conflict from the start, but again have very few meaningful interactions, especially in regard to Nino's character growth. Itsuki and Nino seem to be the closest of the sisters, spending time together just the two of them and getting along very well, likely due to their more similar temperaments. As I mentioned before, it is the relationship between Nino and Miku that truly reflects their character arcs. They begin the series teasing each other and being in conflict at every turn. This elevates as Miku begins to realize her feelings for Futaro, whilst Nino remains resolutely against his invasion of their family relationship until much later, at which point they become significant romantic rivals. During both the manga and the anime, Nino and Miku both receive comparatively more attention to their romantic arcs with Futaro, and so are the most prominent in many scenes, naturally drawing a competitive line between them, especially as they represent completely different romantic ideals. Nino representing the chase, a feisty tsundere with alluring feminine traits, such as her skill with cooking and more interest in fashion than the other quints, and Miku being a sweet and submissive girl who is open about her feelings and easy to get along with. Nino's character development is most evident as she comes to see Miku not as competition, but as her broken sister, someone who needs her and who she can rely on. This starts when Miku cuts Nino's hair as they discuss how the differences between the system make them one whole, 5 equal souls. Nino berates Ichika for causing Miku to cry when she impersonates her, and causes Miku's feelings for Futaro to be exposed against her will. Miku also comes to Nino first following Futaro's rejection, relying on her for comfort. Miku tells her it's over and they hug each other whilst crying, distraught with heartbreak. This closeness progresses until they eventually achieve their dream of opening a bakery, which they run together as the closest of sisters. Now, Nino's relationship with Futaro is the most significant for this discussion, as tsundere traits become most evident when the character comes into contact with their love interest. When the two first meet, Nino is extremely cold towards Futaro, having noticed him pursuing Itsuki to earn her forgiveness, after he realised he had unwittingly offended the girl he was supposed to start tutoring, and having seen the beginnings of Miku's attraction towards him. She desperately keeps him away from the other quints and insults him, calling him a creep and a stalker. She is trying to turn her sisters against him from the start, to avoid him entering their family home and breaching the quintuplet relationship. Nino is one of the last of the sisters to realise her attraction towards Futaro. Initially, she even refuses to call him by name, referring to him mostly as you and him. Going to the extremes of her tsundere archetype, she shows violent tendencies when she spikes Futaro's drink to get him to leave their house. This makes Futaro view her as abrasive and self-righteous, setting her back when she eventually starts competing for his affection. However, she eventually realises his dedication to tutor the sisters, and they slowly begin to acclimatise to each other, getting used to the traits they once found bothersome, Nino admiring his dedication and him appreciating her willingness to protect her sisters. This was set back, however, by her fallout with Itsuki, which she blamed on Futaro's invasion of their family. The next significant escalation in their relationship comes from a combination of Nino's bias towards wild boys and her poor eyesight leading to a misunderstanding. She views a picture of Futaro in Kyoto from several years prior, not recognising him due to his different attitude and blonde hair. She seems to like Kintaro, the name Futaro came up with as his fake cousin, and begins to let out some more of her dere side, acting cute and flustered when they talk and asking him to go to a dance with her, which he obviously can't attend because he has to go as Futaro to maintain appearances with the other quints. She becomes devastated when she discovers that Kintaro was Futaro the whole time, but is touched by his dedication to bring the sisters back together, following Nino and Itsuki leaving home after their fallout. When Futaro comes to collect her on a motorbike when she is with her father, she sees an image of him as her prince and confesses to him on the bike, though he does not hear, due to the heavy wind. Though she falls for him fairly late comparatively, Nino is ironically the first to confess to him. After this, her disposition wildly changes as she reconfesses to Futaro, this time in earshot, and uses his shock and embarrassment to tease him their shared job. Still taking a very dominant position, initiating all contact between her and Futaro, such as trying to get him to join a group with her for the Kyoto trip. It is at this point when Ichika and Nino properly enter a competition, both willing to do anything to win. They fight fiercely for their prize. Nino never stops being in love with Futaro, even going so far as to tell Yotsuba she will steal him from her if she so much as hesitates during their relationship. Nino's relationship and personal development is what redeemed her character for me. She began the series as my least favourite quint due to her rude and abrasive attitude, but ascended to one of my favourites by the end. Through her arc, Harem Neji refuses to follow the tried and true method of allowing the tsundere's actions to go unexcused and even to be praised as a show of strength in some cases. Nino is deliberately presented as annoying and unlikable, until her feelings towards Futaro and the strengthening of the bond between the quintuplets as they finally agree on something, their love for Futaro, mellows her and she begins to mature, symbolised by the cutting of her hair, finally changing from the long hair the quintuplets used to share. Her love for her sisters is her motivation behind every action. She wants to prevent anyone from shattering the feeble bonds keeping them together, meaning she refuses to accept Futaro as their tutor. Even though she claims she will do anything to achieve her goal of being the bride, she would celebrate if any one of her sisters were chosen by Futaro, and she does. She and Yotsuba remain very close following the engagement and wedding. The quintuplet bond is stronger than ever as they even all go on honeymoon together. Nino's character is a masterclass in a trope that is so easily distorted and so controversial amongst the anime community as a result. Several characters in prominent media have tried to encapsulate this trope, but only succeeding in creating a character many dislike. It can also be seen as a lazy way to create drama, and most agree it is a heavily overutilized trait, as it is so easy to get wrong. One example of this is the controversial anime Orimo's Kirino, a hotly debated female tsundere. One of the, admittedly many, reasons this anime is so contested is due to Kirino's unredeemable, abusive and violent displays towards her love interest. This glorification of abusive behaviour has created dislike in audiences of the tsundere trope, eventually becoming sick of clueless MCs falling for this obviously terrible person, who is usually angry for little to no reason other than wanting to admit their romantic attraction to the main character, who often chooses them instead of the more palatable and blatantly better other options. Nino subverts this trope because the unique quirk of the narrative, the 5 sisters all falling for the same person, meaning the competition for the main character's heart has a completely different implication. She wants to protect the fabric of their family, whilst also allowing space for her to pursue her own desires. This creates an extremely divided character, making her quick to lash out. She feels left behind by her other sisters, as they all grew apart from each other, and imprisoned by her identity as 1/5 of a person. Nino also drastically changes, not only as a result of her love for Futaro, but especially because of her re-established closeness with her sisters and her growing maturity. This, to me, seems to be why so many people wanted Nino to be the bride, because of the sheer magnitude of her growth. From a stubborn and cruel teenager to a mature and caring young woman, achieving her lifelong dream of opening a bakery. But this too is another subversion, the author choosing not to pick the tsundere character and instead letting the childhood friend, who often falls behind in many harem romances, to be the winner. Nino has a few significant motifs that are present in her narrative that are a visual representation of her character development. Interestingly, both of the most major motifs have to do with her hair, a visual link and later differing factor between her and the other quints. When young, all of the quintuplets had long hair which they wore identically, matching their other identical features. Following her meeting with Futaro in Kyoto, Yotsuba decided to differentiate herself from the others by wearing a ribbon in her hair, and the others quickly followed suit with their own expressions of style. Showing her devotion to her sisters and their origin as quintuplets, Nino barely changes her hair, keeping it long and only having bangs cut. She opens the story of the quintessential quintuplets with this hairstyle, and it is eventually revealed that she feels as if she hasn't changed, and has been left behind by the others as they grow apart. This realization leads her to choose to change her hair drastically, employing Miku's support to sport a short bob cut. This change symbolizes her becoming more mature and taking on the role of the protective older sister that she has been hinted towards having. Throughout the series, Nino wears butterfly hair clips on either side of her head, which she always wears and is rarely seen without. This is another motif relating to her inability to be free to be herself. The butterflies are tethered to her head, as she is unable to fly away from the quintuplet label. In the end of the story, she wears her hair in a ponytail, and though the scrunchie she uses still resembles her hair clips, the butterfly motif is more muted and less obvious, showing that she is remaining true to herself, whilst also allowing herself to be a whole person, not 1/5 of a whole. Now some may be wondering, does the conclusion of the story really do justice to Nino's development, or does it just ruin her character entirely? Many were unsatisfied that not only did she lose out to Yotsuba in becoming the bride, but she had found no romantic fulfillment by the end of the manga, and some of her development is even backtracked, as she insists that she will steal Futaro at the sign of any hesitation, directly conflicting with her saying that she would want to celebrate Futaro's choice during the Sisters' War arc. Nino ends the story having opened a successful bakery with Miku, who had realised her dreams to work in the culinary field during her own character arc, despite her academic excellence during her own character arc, both achieving their childhood dream. To me, this is a more satisfying conclusion than I was expecting after seeing what other people were saying across the internet. Though she lost to Yotsuba, she is still able to achieve her childish dream and become closer to her sisters, especially the one she is closest in birth time to. It is the conclusion of her more violent tendencies, and could be even connected to motifs of femininity, her taking on fully the maternal role she has had throughout the series with no hard outer shell to hold her back. However, it was disappointing to see that none of the quints had moved on from Futaro, even 5 years after the rejection. Lastly, the question you've all been waiting for. Is Nino the best tsundere? Well, I don't really have the knowledge or wisdom to make this call, but she's certainly an entertaining character to watch, and I think we can all agree. My girl deserved better. I hope you liked this commentary and found something interesting in my analysis of the tsundere trope through Nino's development in the Quintessential Quintuplets. Next in this series will be an analysis of Nino's polar opposite, the third sister Miku. If you feel so inclined, subscribe to receive a notification when I release that video or any other. and please leave a like if you enjoyed this video. If you disagree with me or have anything to add to my analysis, I would love if you commented down below. I want to hear anything you have to say. Thank you for watching, and of course, have a magical day.